Good morning, guys. Happy Tuesday. It's Amy Bennett with the AM Show. I hope you're doing well. It is a cloudy day here in the Carolinas. I think it's supposed to be a pretty cool day today. We had a very rainy evening last night, and I had to go out in it because Lexi had her acting class and Emma had a thing with her friends out at Starbucks, so I was running in and out of that rain crazy. But it was pretty low-key, what am I trying to say? Low-key evening last night. And I don't know if you guys are superhero movie watchers, but every time I say low-key, I think of Loki. Which both of my girls love, so I don't know. That's a tangent. Anyway, today good morning. Let me say good morning to who jumped on, Darian and Marie. Good morning, guys. Glad you joined. It's kind of windy out here. I'm sorry. My throat's feeling a little bit weird. Today, I want to talk about something that I was thinking about this past Saturday. And so, as you guys know, I'm reading through the Bible right now. I think I'm going to say that every morning because it's going to, I don't know, it's going to affect everything I talk about, I guess. And I think that sometimes when we open the Bible, we are expecting to see some saints. Perfect people, you know, even in Hebrews, they talk about the hall of faith, you know, if you will, all the people who were so faithful. And you expect to see a list of people that were just perfect. And that is absolutely not the case. Not the case at all. And then I've heard some people, you know, kind of flip that and say, you don't have to be a saint. You have to think Noah was a drunk, David was an adulterer, and they start labeling all of these people as, you know, some sort of sin that was revealed in the Bible. And I don't think that's fair either. We go the opposite, and we say, well, if David was an adulterer and, you know, Noah was a drunk, then God can use you too. And I think that's so faulty because when you read scripture, Noah was not just a drunk. David was just not just an adulterer. And we have this tendency to what they might call dualism, or black and white thinking. Like they're either a saint or they're known by their sin. And I think we tend to do that with ourselves, and I don't think it's fair. And this is one of the things that I'm seeing. I've talked about this before in other places, but every time I read the Bible, there's this kind of just theme that is revealed. So sometimes it's maybe locations, sometimes it's God's faithfulness, sometimes it's God's love, you know, whatever. And this time it feels like what he's trying to reveal to me is just the humanity of people in God's story. You know, it's not just saints, and they're not just people that are labeled by their sin. They're not just sinners. They're complicated people that are both. And so you look at Noah. Noah was very faithful and very obedient. And yes, he did get drunk one time, and maybe more than one time. And yes, David did commit adultery, but he was not an adulterer. He was a man after God's own heart. And he spent a lot of time being faithful to God. I was even looking this morning at Samson. Samson was born to a woman who struggled with infertility, and yet God blessed her with Samson and said he was going to be used for his purposes. And yet he was faithful up to a point, and then he let sin and the love of women he was not supposed to be with take over him. And then yet at the very end of his life, he turned back and submitted to God. And so it's just letting go of this black and white thinking about the people of God. And I think we need to do that with ourselves. Sometimes we want to label ourselves, oh, I'm a faithful person, I'm doing everything right. And then we get into the season where we're, you know, struggling, and we're like, oh, I'm a sinner, I'm just terrible. It's neither. We're neither. We are, you know, it's the definition of like humanity, of being humans, that we are faithful and unfaithful. We are both of those things. But here's the thing that came to me, is that the people who are considered in this hall of faith are people who return to God. Who return to God. They didn't, I think about Israel, who never returned to God. They sat in their sin, they rejected him, they rejected the Messiah. They didn't return to him, and God said, oh, I wanted to gather you. I want to gather you under my wings. Like, and I can't remember the exact, I think it's in Matthew. I wanted to gather you under my wings like a hen and her chicks. He didn't want them to be perfect. He just wanted them to return to him. And I just think that is what I'm seeing. Faithfulness does not require perfection. Faithfulness just requires faithfulness. And to be faithful just means to return, continue to return. If I am, in my marriage, if I am considered faithful, that doesn't mean I'm perfect. That means I just continue to return to my husband. Even when I'm not perfect, I just continue to return to him. I ask for forgiveness. He forgives me. And then, that is being faithful. That's being a faithful wife, is that you continue to return to your husband. And that's what faithfulness to God looks like. It does not require perfection. It just requires faithfulness. Is that we return over and over. And I just feel like that is what God is looking for, is a person who, yes, is faithful, yes, obeys, yes, tries to live according to God's law, but also messes up sometimes because we're human. And yet in that and after that returns to him in faithfulness. And I was taken to Joel, where Joel is talking to, unfaithful, I think it's Judah he's talking to, as a people, not the person Judah, but a people, nation Judah. And it was so interesting to me that the phrase that kept coming to mind was return to me, return to me. And this is the verse that I ended up with, and I just really felt like I meant to share today, is Joel 2:13. Rend your heart and not your garments. Return to the Lord your God, for he is gracious and compassionate, slow to anger and abounding in love, and he relents from sending calamity. And I think that's just what he's calling us to, is a return. And that's what faithfulness looks like, is that even in our sin, even when we mess up, we just return. And that's what he's looking for. He's not looking for perfection. He's just looking for us to recognize our sin, know that ultimately we have sinned against him, and to rend your heart. Rend your heart. It's like, God, I know I offended you. I know ultimately that my sin is against you. I confess it. I'm sorry. Accept his forgiveness and move on. And we recognize once again that was a reason that Jesus came to die, is because we had sin. That's the reason. That was a big aha moment for me last year. It was that my sin is not a surprise to God. Like, the whole reason Jesus came is because he already saw that we were sinners. Like, he knew. And he says, I'm not going to leave you in that. I'm going to rescue you from that. I'm going to come to redeem you and to be the sacrifice for you. So he's not surprised. He's not surprised by our sin. And yet what he tells us is that he wants us to return to him. And so, yeah, that's what I think. Maybe for some of us, it's a return. That maybe you were in a season where you have sinned against God. There's definitely seasons that we go to. I mean, I think there's sometimes like we do, kind of one-off sort of things, and it's not really a season that we go through, and we need to, ask for forgiveness. But I think there's sometimes we go through seasons that we're really struggling, and maybe this is a season that you're going through, and you just need to return to God and say, I recognize my sin. And just like it says, return to the Lord, rend your heart. And even says before that, it says, return to me with all your heart, with fasting and weeping and mourning. I definitely have been through a season like that. I think it's Psalm And we talked about David, and David actually wrote a psalm that was just so, Psalm 51. Yeah, Psalm 51. If you need a psalm to kind of help you through this sort of thing, go to Psalm 51. That is just something I prayed over and over again after a season of what you might say disobedience and sin, and God has restored. God is restoring. And so I don't know. I think we need to, as I think about it today, let go of the black and white labels and trying to label ourselves and label people as saints or sinners and, adulterers and faithful, and just be human and recognize that it's all about being faithful, not perfect, and that we continue and continue and continue to return to God. All right. So that is, I think it's starting to rain out here, so I'm going to have to go quickly. I saw Michelle, you were able to join. Hi. Laura, you were able to join. It's good to see you. Hope you are feeling better. I think you were sick, so I'm sorry. Hope you're feeling better. Let me know. Text me. Okay, today, I don't think we have Emma's getting her hair cut today. She's getting a big girl cut, if you will. She's found a style on Pinterest, of course, and is going to get it cut. She's usually pretty much just lopped off a straight cut, never one of layers or anything, and she's found a style, so we'll see how that goes. And what else? I don't think we have anything else planned for this evening, so it's going to be a pretty, I wore my Yay Tuesday. Simply Tuesday, as Emily Freeman says. It's a pretty, just calm, normal Tuesday. But every day is a gift, and I'm thankful for today, to wake up today, and I know God has stuff for me to do today and has stuff for you to do today. So let's just keep our eyes on Him, and hope you have a great day. All right, y'all have a good one. Have a good Tuesday. We'll see you back tomorrow.